What if President William Ruto's biggest advantage going into the next election is not simply the strength of his government, but his ability to weaken the opposition before the real contest even begins? That is where the political calculation becomes interesting. Ruto is increasingly seen by many Kenyans as a pragmatic and shrewd politician because he has never lost an election.
And don't forget, the president is watching all this from afar. He's the guy who has the cards. He's the chess master, grand master.
So he thinks.
And if we look at his political history, one thing becomes clear. He does not always try to defeat his opponents directly. Sometimes he changes the political battlefield before the election even arrives. One possible strategy is to pull key people out of the opposition. We have already seen something similar. In the 2022 election, Ruto managed to bring Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula into his camp after they had been associated with the opposition side. Their movement significantly changed the political balance and gave Ruto a broader coalition. So, could we see another version of the same strategy before 2027? The opposition currently has several prominent figures with presidential ambitions. If Ruto can convince some of them that joining his side gives them a better political future, he does not necessarily need to defeat the entire opposition. He only needs to weaken it from within. And this brings us to another possible strategy: encouraging opposition leaders to believe that they can win independently. This is not a completely new political tactic in Kenya. During the 1992 and 1997 elections, President Daniel Arap Moi benefited from a deeply divided opposition. In 1992, opposition figures such as Kenneth Matiba, Mwai Kibaki, and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga contested separately against Daniel Moi. In 1997, Kibaki, Raila Odinga, and others again ran against Moi, with the opposition vote divided among several candidates. President Daniel wins both elections while the opposition remains fragmented. So, could history provide a lesson for 2027?
Tell me something. You were there in 1992 during the multi-party democracy, right?
Yes.
Do you see a repeat, a deja vu of 1992? Yani, nguruwe inajikaranga na mafuta yake.
In terms of?
The split between Matiba and Jaramogi then. This was done by Moi. Moi was tactical. And it might be the same thing in 2027.
Well, I don't want to... That danger is always there, of course. Governments will always try to divide people. And this government can only survive, in my view, if it is able to put a range of division in the opposition ranks. And that danger is there. And
if several opposition leaders convince themselves that they have a realistic chance of winning independently, they can easily end up competing against one another instead of building one strong coalition. And Ruto does not necessarily have to tell them to split. Sometimes all a politician needs to do is make each side believe that it is the strongest side. Then there is money. Politics in Kenya is expensive, and presidential campaigns require enormous resources. An incumbent president naturally has access to political networks and fundraising structures that many opposition candidates may struggle to match. The opposition can depend heavily on individual sponsors, businessmen, political allies, and ordinary supporters. But an incumbent has a much wider political and administrative ecosystem around him. This creates an obvious advantage. There are also persistent allegations of voter inducement during Kenyan elections, and the recent OL Kalau by-election has already generated accusations and counter-accusations over the use of money and material incentives to influence voters. The important point is not simply whether every allegation is true. The bigger question is whether money becomes a major weapon in the 2027 political contest. Because if one side can spend significantly more than the other, it can dominate rallies, advertising, mobilization, and grassroots organization. Then comes propaganda. Ruto and his political allies have already demonstrated how powerful political messaging can be. In the 2022 election, his campaign successfully presented him as an outsider fighting an established political system, while portraying his opponents as part of the old political establishment. That message connects with many voters. Going into 2027, we can expect another battle over narratives. Who is responsible for Kenya's economic problems? Who actually represents change? Who is working with Ruto? Who is secretly negotiating with Ruto? Who can unite the opposition? And perhaps most importantly, who can actually defeat the president? These questions can become political weapons. If opposition leaders spend more time attacking each other, responding to rumors, denying secret deals, and fighting over who should lead, Ruto's campaign does not necessarily need to destroy them directly. They can weaken themselves. But there is another factor that Ruto cannot completely control: public opinion. An incumbent can have money, political networks, government visibility, and a powerful campaign machine, but elections are ultimately decided by voters. Economic conditions matter. The cost of living matters. Youth unemployment matters. Government performance matters. And the president's relationship with different regions matters. So while these strategies may give Ruto significant advantages, none of them guarantees victory. The opposition still has one powerful weapon: unity. If opposition leaders manage to put their personal ambitions aside, agree on one credible presidential candidate, and build a strong national coalition, some of Ruto's possible strategies become much harder to execute. But if they remain divided, compete against one another, and allow themselves to be pulled into individual negotiations with the government, the political mathematics could become very difficult for them. And that is why the 2027 election may not simply be a battle between Ruto and whoever stands against him. It may first be a battle over whether the opposition can remain together long enough to become a serious threat. Ruto may try to win through alliances, defections, political messaging, financial muscle, and a divided opposition. But will these strategies be enough? Or will Kenyans ultimately make their decision based on the government's record rather than political tactics? That is the bigger question. What do you think? Do you believe Ruto's biggest advantage in 2027 is his own political strength? Or is it the possibility of a divided opposition? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.